Hello everyone, and today we're going to be looking at one of my long-term favourite decks that finally got a bit of love, the ABC Dragon Buster. I've been utilising this deck for quite a long time. I know a lot of people are jumping on this deck now that the Therion has been released, but I've been playing this deck for a long time. And now that it's got the Therion King Regulus, it is only getting better. It is so much better right now. This version of the deck, again, there's so many different ways of playing it that it's hard to give one particular sort of best deck profile. So we are going to be doing a couple of them. This version of it, this version's my favourite. I think this is the most fun. Is it the most competitive? Maybe not. The adventure engine would probably make it a little bit more consistent and competitive, but to be honest, if your objective when you're picking it up is you want to see your machines, you want to see your ABC, you want to see your Infinity, you want to see your Regulus, then this is going to be the version of the deck for you, because this version, the idea behind it is just go, go, go. It is gas all the way. You're just spamming out your ABC pieces, spamming out your gadgets, your soldier, your Regulus as quickly as you can, utilizing cards like Reasoning, utilizing all of your field spells, utilizing your unauthorized reactivation, using all of these tools in order to turbo out your machines. We are going to do a full card for card deck profile at the end, so if that's what you want to be seeing, stick around for that. But do watch the gameplay if you've never played ABC before, because the idea behind it, right, is that you're just trying to get the ABC pieces into the grave while making sure you're putting some interruptions up onto your board, like the Buster, like the Infinity, like the Masquerina is the other big one you want to be doing. So if you want to be doing things like that, absolutely stick around and watch the gameplay. Even just Masquerina and ABC Dragon Buster by itself is 5 interruptions, because you will use your quick play banish off a Dragon Buster, then you can substitute him out for all 3 ABC pieces, then use Masquerina and your 3 ABC pieces to go in the 4 material Apollosa on your opponent's turn. So even just those 2 cards by themselves is 5 interruptions. Being able to go into Regulus and Infinity on top of that is pretty nuts. So if you're interested in seeing that, absolutely watch the gameplay just to see the combos, to see the plays. And if you haven't, been around here before, if this is your first time viewing the channel, or if you've been around and you just haven't subscribed, why not? It doesn't cost you anything, and it would help me out greatly. We are, at the time of recording, 20 subs away from 1,000. 20. We are so close, it is painful. So if you haven't subscribed, I would really appreciate you doing so. And you can leave down below to see what sort of decks or ideas or additions you would like to see in addition to the ABC Dragon Buster. Maybe you're a bigger fan of the adventure version, which I will be covering soon. I just like this version better. I think this is more fun. I don't think it's more competitive. I think it's more fun, which is why I want to cover it first. We'll cover off an adventure version of it pretty soon, so we will. So without further ado, let's get into game number 1. Alright, getting into game 1. This is going to be a nice and simple one here. We're going to go terraforming off the bat to go into our Union carrier, a Union Hangar. Terraforming has the ability to grab either Hangar or the Regulus Discoliseum, so because we've already got Regulus, there's no point in searching the Discoliseum. Union Hangar on summon, on activation, we'll search for V-Buster Drake. Your gadgets on summon summons another machine from your hand, which we summon our Buster. Because we summoned the Machine Union monster, we can equip on another Machine Union monster from our deck, thanks to Union Hangar. So now we have B and A in the graveyard. We're going to activate B and A in the grave to utilize their effects. A will add back B from our graveyard back to our hand, and B is going to search our deck for another Union monster, so we grab the Sea Crush Wyvern. Now we're going to go Regulus, bringing out our A Assault Core as an equip material. Now this basically is here just to protect us from Nibiru. So we're protected from Nibiru, which is amazing. We go Photon Orbital off of Carrier to search our deck for Galaxy Soldier, which we will now summon by ditching a Light Monster. Searching for a second Soldier, which we will summon by discarding a Light Monster. Now we've got our 2 machine level 5s on the field. We go into Cyber Dragon Nova. Nova then is followed up by Infinity. So now we've got Infinity, Regulus, ABC in the grave. We're going to go Union. We're going to go unauthorized reactivation for Union Driver, and we've got the A Assault Core now on field. So we bring out a Sea Crush Wyvern, which we can summon. Using these 2, we go off into IP Masquerina. A Assault Core is basically going to add the Crush Wyvern back to hand since we had 2 of them. It just gives us extra discard material for our ABC Dragon Buster. So this is our end board. This is pretty nuts. This is really crazy. So Therion is amazing in this deck because it helps you recycle and resummon your ABC pieces from the graveyard. And because of that, you're able to extend so much more. Right now, so what does this board actually do? Well, you've got an Omni Negate, you've got an Omni Negate, you've got a Quick Play Banish, and then Masquerena is going to summon out a 4 Material Apollousa. That is 7 interruptions. 7! That is insane. And you've got a crazy amount of follow-up, because when Masquerena summons that Apollousa, you're going to search off of your B-Buster Drake, you're going to recycle off of your Assault Core. There's so many things that you're going to do, so much advantage you're going to generate. You're realistically going +2 off of the Masquerena, and you've got 7 interruptions. It is honestly crazy. Going into your opponent's turn here, and this is a fairly regular play. I mean, you don't go quite this balls deep every single time, but like this is sort of your general sort of plays. We're up against Predaplant here, we let him use his spell card, that's fine. Branded Opening, that's okay. He brings out his Aliber, we're going to use Infinity to negate the Aliber. That's a-okay. We're sort of expecting him to have some sort of spell card to follow up, which we'll use our Therion to negate. He does just normal summon his Predaplant here, which this guy has an Ignition effect that allows him to fusion summon, so we just quick play banish it off of the Buster, and that's pretty much it. Our opponent can't play through this many interruptions. It is simply not possible, so he just has to scoop it up. Insane. Like, honestly, if you get a board like this, you're actually nuts. You're so good. This is pretty crazy. Now, normally, right, you're not going to get all of this every single time. I'm not going to lie to you and say this is the best deck in the game. You're not going to get all of this every single time, but you will normally get at least 2 or 3 pieces of it out of 4 up pretty much every game. Like, you're going to be struggling to find a game where you can't summon the ABC. You're going to be struggling to find a game where you can't go into Masquerena. Masquerena and ABC, that's your baseline. You can almost always go into those. You can almost always slap an Infinity on top of it, right? So there's usually 3, and then it just comes down to whether or not you can grab the Disc Coliseum or the Regulus, basically, from the deck. So it's pretty good, it's pretty nuts. You will consistently put out a good amount of interruptions. But with that being said, let's get into game number 2. Alright, let's get a look at a game where maybe not everything goes totally according to plan. We're up against Salamangreats here, and we are going second, which is a bit of a problem because Salamangreats are very powerful, especially going first. Our only interruption is an Infinite Impermanence, and this Salamangreats will choke through an Infinite Impermanence like it's nobody's business, so we're not all that confident in having just one hand trap. So basically we're just saving it for a powerful enough target here. He's going to go into the Salamangreat Sanctuary, ditching Balinks for a Balinks to trigger off his Gazelle in hand to summon itself out to the field. This is when we decide to hit him with the Imperm. If he's going to go into the Sunlight Wolf, that's fine, but we don't want him to be able to recycle the Salamangreat Roar. That's the last thing we want, so we're hitting the Gazelle just to stop him from getting Roar. He's going to go into Splash Mage here. Splash Mage is going to revive a Cyberse monster from his graveyard. He's going to go to Buffalo so we can link summon into Deco Talker Heat Soul. That basically means he can pay 1,000 life points to draw an extra card during either player's turn, so it's a +2 there right off the bat. He's going to draw himself a card here. We draw into on-off Reg reactivation. We'll ditch the gold gadget to summon out the Galaxy Soldier. He does actually hit this with an Effect Veiler, which is a good Veiler from him in theory, but to be honest, the second Soldier wasn't going to do us any favours. All we really wanted out of this interaction was putting a gold gadget in grave, so now we can activate Therion in hand, equip onto it the gold from the graveyard to summon this guy out to the field. Now here's a bit of a lesson if you haven't had this interaction before. Stopping the equipping of the monster from the graveyard on the activation of Regulus does not prevent his summon. You should not do that unless the equip monster is actually going to be an issue, so he banishes our gold gadget here, but we don't care. All we needed to do was target it and we can summon Therion. So don't use Call by the Grave to try and stop a Therion summon, it's simply not going to work. So we take out his Deco Talker Heat Soul, we set our on-off res reactivation, and we pass turn. Now, we realistically could have activated this at the time, again, because we were still sort of learning. At the time, I had set this in the expectation of being able to use it to equip on an ABC piece to Therion, should the need arise. However, that isn't actually possible because it needs to be an appropriate union monster, and the ABC pieces will only equip to light machines. So this was a small misplay for me at the time while we were learning. We actually do activate it here during the end phase, and we end up equipping on union driver. So small misplay, slowed us down a little bit, but ultimately it's not the end of the world. You also cannot use the secondary effective Union Driver to search your deck for another one while it's equipped to Regulus, because there's nothing else in your deck to equip. So we end up summoning it here. We go into the Sea Crush Wyvern and equip that onto our Union Driver just to protect us from trap cards. We figured he had the Salamangreat Rage, so we wanted to limit his targets. We're going to ditch the Regulus in hand to use the negate of the one on the field. Remember, this is a Therion monster from your field or hand, including, so you basically just ditch the Regulus in your hand and you're all good. We inflict some pretty heavy damage here. That sort of middle turn there we did, again, wasn't the smoothest plays in the world. We realistically could have did some link plays, could have went a wee bit crazy, but we just didn't. We were a couple of extenders short of making it go crazy, but here we are. Now we've got the Bee-Buster Drake. Our opponent's going to try to go for Goes In Match. We're going to ditch Regulus to negate that. I don't actually even know if that negates this. I would need to look into that interaction a little bit more, but honestly, it works out in our favor anyway. So we're going to go Union Driver for the Assault Core. Assault Core summon off into our Union Carrier. Union Carrier then, well, sorry, our Bee-Buster Drake and Assault Core are going to activate first, which is pretty cool because these guys, basically a combo by itself, are guaranteed to put 2 light monsters into your hand, right? Because you grab one from grave and you grab one from deck. So there's 2 light monsters. Union Carrier then will grab you a Photon Orbital, which will grab you a Galaxy Soldier, which for your engine needs 2 light monsters in your hand. So it's pretty handy. Galaxy Soldier number 1 comes out, searches for our second and third Galaxy Soldiers. But we're going to go into Saber Dragon Nova here. Nova just ranks up into infinity. There is an Omni Negate for you, my friend. That is ABC being banished from the graveyard for our Dragon Buster. We go in the battle phase and our opponent immediately scoops it up. Pretty self-explanatory. Again, was that the smoothest game in the world? Probably not. We were still a little bit on the learning curve, but that's a good one for you guys to learn from as well. Again, you guys watching this probably already knew that, but again, it always helps to see mistakes being made as well, so you can learn from them. But yeah, again, even through all of that, the Regulus being able to negate, Regulus basically fixes a lot of bad hands. If you're in a situation where your hand isn't all that great, or maybe you're not able to turbo off, or maybe you just get interrupted, like we did with the Imperm, with the Effect Veiler. Regulus then comes in and fixes those situations where it at least puts something on your board, gives you a little bit of a presence, a little bit of offense, and a little bit of control. So yeah, pretty straightforward stuff. A decent enough game against Salamangreats there. We had a big advantage going the whole way through. And yeah, let's get into game number 3. Alrighty, game 3 here. Let's see what happens. We're going to go for the Therion Disc Coliseum right off the bat, grabbing Regulus from our deck. We're going to go Silver Gadget to summon out the Sea Crush Wyvern. Our opponent's got that Mech Sea on deck. We're not going to let that thing resolve, absolutely not. We've got the Ash Blossom in hand for a reason. So basically our Silver Gadget's going to summon out from our hand the Sea Crush Wyvern. The gadgets are so good because they just kick your link plays off. We're going to go unauthorized reactivation to grab the Bee-Buster Drake, just so that when it's sent to the graveyard, we get to search our deck for an extra card. So we grab the Assault Core straight from our deck, which Platinum Gadget will give us the ability to special summon. Now we're going to grab back the Bee-Buster Drake equipped onto our Regulus here, and then we can use the Bee-Buster Drake's effect to special summon itself, so we can link off yet again into IP Mask Arena. Now we've got some real plays cooking. The Bee-Buster Drake searches for another Bee-Buster Drake, which just serves as discard material. We banish 3 to summon our Dragon Buster. So what do we have here? We have 6 interruptions. Omni Negate, Banish, Negate 4. Pretty crazy. So what exactly is going to happen here? Well, you can have as many interruptions as you want. If you're playing against the gods, you're going to lose. That's as simple as that. Our opponent here just opens up the absolute nuts. Tributes our entire negating field. He summons out his numeral monsters. Ancient Chant gives him an extra tribute summon. Tributes 3 for raw, pays all of his life points to boost it up, and game. This was one of the swiftest losses, the quickest L I've ever been handed using this deck. This man literally just said, absolutely not. You think your machines can stand up to God? Yikes. Well, it was a really cool game. I had to include it. There was no way that I could have a game like this and not include it. This man's playing the Winged Dragon of Ra in Diamond. What a Chad. He's obviously just better at the game than me. So, I mean, I don't know. If he has a channel, go subscribe to him. But no, 100%. Just wanted to quickly show that off. The combos on our turn also were very good. I wanted to show the Platinum Gadget at least once, where it basically just acts as an extender and you can see how the unauthorized reactivation, how the Union Hanger, how Regulus, putting all of these Union monsters into your spell and trap card zones are basically just special summons for free. So yeah, I wanted to show that off a little bit as well. But anyway, let's get into our fourth and final game. Alrighty, getting into our fourth game here. We've got that Reasoning in hand. Reasoning is obviously a very powerful card. Our opponent selects level 1. So we're going to send cards from the top of the deck to the graveyard. Hitting a gadget off of Reasoning is astounding because now you can summon out a monster for free. We're able to go in the Union Carrier and we haven't even normal summoned yet. Our Buster Drake is going to attempt to search our deck for another Union monster, but unfortunately we do get interrupted. That does make life a little bit difficult. We're going to Union Hanger here to equip onto itself the Union Driver so we can ditch it and summon out, equip on the Crush Wyvern, which we can summon. Then the A Assault Core can be normal summoned since we haven't normal summoned yet, and it will then allow us to banish 3 from grave to go into our Dragon Buster. We decide not to go into the Galaxy Soldier, do anything fancy just yet. We want to keep the card in hand for discarding. Now we're playing against an interesting deck here. They're going to go Spellbook of Knowledge here right off the bat, which is a very interesting card. We didn't really know what we were playing, but you're going to see pretty soon. It's Sky Strikers. Now this guy just goes straight to battle phase, and it really threw me off guard. Admittedly, we should have during the main phase have attempted to banish it to force him to use his effect, and then use Masquerena with the 3 materials to give us the negates basically. So we really did mess up by not catching that in time. He just completely blitzed through his main phase to battle phase, and it just threw me off guard. So misplay from myself, absolutely huge misplay, because now he's able to just take out our Masquerena and there's not really anything we can do about it. So again, just bad plays all around from me, but again, something to learn from. That's why I want to show it off. It is something to learn from. Kagiri here. Kagiri's going to grab the engage that he just sent to grave. The Royal Engage. This man is balling. So he's going to go engage. He's going to grab from his deck the Mobilize Linkage. Linkage is a pretty nuts card. He's going to go Shizuku now. Shizuku gives him that end phase search set to pass. Now we're going to go the ABC Buster's effect. Tribute to summon all 3 machines back to the field. It just means that for the following turn we get a little bit more card advantage. He's going to grab another copy of Linkage, which is interesting. I don't think it's of any use to him in his hand, but it's fine. We're going to basically link 5, right? So that's the thing. Link 5 off into our Underworld Goddess. That's pretty nuts because it doesn't trigger the effect of his Ray, because this only triggers if his monster is sent to the graveyard by your opponent's card effect or battle. Where it wasn't. It was just tributed as link material, so it doesn't actually count. So that's a pretty nuts play you'll do in this deck, an awful lot, honestly. You're going to activate the A and the B in the graveyard. He's actually going to go Ghost Bell to negate the A Assault Core's effect, which was very interesting. Honestly, not the worst thing in the world for us. That sort of worked in our benefit almost. We're going to grab an A Assault Core from our deck, normal summon it, link 2 into the Nightmare Phoenix. Now, Nightmare Phoenix is currently co-linked with the Underworld Goddess, so when we ditch one to pop a card, we also get to draw one as well, replacing the lost card advantage. That's why we didn't mind making this play. So we're going to get popping. We pop the Spellbook of Fate, which is huge. Non-targeting banishment, I'll pass. That's not for me. Then we're going to go into the ABC Dragon Buster. We inflict exactly 7,900 damage. 7,900. We're going to banish this remaining face down card just because. And we're going to pass it back to our opponent here. Now, pretty much right away, we're going to use our Dragon Buster's effect. Why are we doing that? Well, we don't have any cards in hand to discard for its effect. So we just want to put as many monsters on our field as possible so that when we use our Forbidden Droplet, it's not as costly for us. So basically we're just giving ourselves fuel for Droplet. He's going to go Spellbook of Judgment and then chain on the Mobilize to send Judgment to the graveyard prior to resolution, meaning he basically gets a 0 cost Kagiri. Kagiri comes on out. He still has Ray in his graveyard, which is fine. They're going to go Sky Striker Ace, adding back the Mobilize, except no, you're not. You're not getting that 3. We're going to send the Buster Drake, negate the Kagiri, and have its attack points, which dramatically reduces his ability to play the game, and he just has to scoop it up. He's got no other way to recycle those cards. The Kagiri is pretty much once per turn, and yeah, sucks to suck. I don't know what to tell you. The Underworld Goddess play is really good. That's part of why I wanted to show this replay off. Yes, we did misplay pretty heavily with that Masquerena play, but I wanted to show that there's always recovery options. With how easily you can spam monsters out onto your board, especially on a turn following up from the Dragon Buster when you have all 3 machines back in your field. The Underworld Goddess is an absolute breeze to summon. So you can really take advantage of that. To be honest, even during your opponent's turn, if you decide not to go into the Apollousa with the Masquerena, you can use Masquerena to go into the Underworld Goddess. You can basically kaiju your opponent on their turn. And when it's summoned, it will negate their entire field. It's pretty nuts. It's pretty crazy. So, I mean, yeah, that's pretty much as simple as that. I wanted to show that off. And yeah, let's just get into the deck profile and we'll talk about the whole thing. Alrighty, getting into the deck profile here, what we're going to do first is we're going to cut the hand traps and everything from the deck, but I am going to very quickly cover off how you would do so with reasoning in your deck. So basically, we've got the 2 copies of Effect Veiler, 2 copies of Maxi, 2 copies of Ash Blossom, we've got the 2 copies of Forbidden Droplet, and 2 copies of Infinite Impermanence. Now, if you want to optimize your hand trap loadout to basically fit with the combo plays of your deck, what you're going to want to do is avoid monsters as much as you can, but if you're going to play monsters, you probably want to play light attribute monsters. So maybe Nibiru, maybe you want to throw in Gamma, maybe do something like this if you want to be as combo heavy as you possibly can. The reason you want to do that is you can use any of these light monster hand traps alongside any of your ABC pieces as link material for something like Union Carrier. So that's just a thought. Just wanted to very quickly throw that idea out there. Do you have to play it like that? Absolutely not. But it is an option if you want to optimize that sort of combo route. But anyway, we're going to come back from that. We're just going to look at the deck for what it is. The deck separates itself down into a couple of different core engines, but they all sort of work within the same sort of hemisphere, so they all work together very, very well. Well, I guess we'll just start from the top. We've got the gadgets here, gold and silver. I would recommend playing a ratio like this. You need to play at least 1 of each if you're going to be playing the gadgets at all, and I think 3 in total is fine. We were playing 6 initially, then we bumped it down to 4. Now we're at 3, and I think 3 is fine. I think this is perfect. You don't see them too much. You see them when you need to see them, and I'm happy enough with this. They basically, on summon, they just summon another level 4 machine from your hand, so they will summon one of your ABC pieces, and that is where you're going to be going into your combo play. So they will basically facilitate your Platinum Gadget, they facilitate Masquerena, they facilitate Union Carrier, they do all of this good stuff. So yeah, gadgets I think are really, really cool, especially in combination with Reasoning. They become nuts if you hit a gadget off of Reasoning. It is crazy. So getting into the ABC pieces themselves, A, Assault Core, B, Buster Drake, and the C, Crush Wyvern. Well, you need to get all 3 of them into the graveyard, or onto your field technically, to summon out your ABC Dragon Buster. So how exactly do they assist in the fulfilling of that goal? Well, they each have 2 main effects. Number 1, they have an effect that activates when they're sent from the field to the graveyard, and they each have an equip effect. So A, Assault Core, when sent from field to graveyard, will recycle a Union monster from your graveyard back to your hand. Good for generating advantage. B, Buster Drake is the best of them. When he's sent to the graveyard, you will search your deck for a Union monster and add it to your hand. So this guy will grab one of the other pieces you're missing, making him, in my opinion, the best of them. I don't think it's even really close. And you see Crush Wyvern, which when sent to the graveyard will summon out another Union monster from your hand. So this guy is a decent extender if it comes down to it, although you very rarely use that effect, to be fair. And they all have an effect where basically if they are equipped onto a monster, A, Assault Core will protect that monster from monster effects. It makes it unaffected by monster effects. B, Buster Drake makes it unaffected by spells, and the C, Crush Wyvern makes it unaffected by trap cards. If you're ever unsure, just look at the color of the monster, it will tell you. So they basically all have a graveyard effect and they all have an equip effect, so they're really good. And the idea is you want to get them into the graveyard so you can summon your Buster. Getting into our Galaxy Photon package here, basically we're running 3 copies of Galaxy Soldier in order to summon our Saber Dragon Nova, ditch a light monster from hand to graveyard to special summon the card, and once per turn when it's summoned, you search your deck for another. So you basically grab your second Galaxy Soldier, which you can then discard to special summon again. The special summon is not once per turn, but the search is. So you can discard to summon again, and there is your Saber Dragon Nova. Nova just goes straight into infinity. So basically these guys are a built-in infinity. We're playing Photon Orbital because if you equip Orbital on with your Union Carrier, you can ditch Orbital to the graveyard to search your deck for Galaxy Soldier, which will give you your starting point. So basically this guy just facilitates the starting of that little Saber Dragon combo, which is pretty good. We've got Union Driver, which is acts as a bridge within the deck. So this guy, there's a lot of effects in your deck that will equip a monster on to another monster you control, but that monster won't be able to be special summoned. You can consider Union Driver a sort of bridge between those cards and the cards you actually want to summon. For example, again, we're going to talk about these two cards in a minute, but Union Hanger and Unauthorized Reactivation will equip a Union monster from your deck onto one of your monsters, but that Union monster cannot be special summoned. So what you can do is Union Driver, if you equip on Union Driver using one of these two cards, Union Driver has an effect to banish itself to equip a level 4 or lower appropriate Union monster from your deck to the monster it was equipped to. Meaning you can trade this guy in for one of your ABC pieces, and he doesn't put the same restriction onto your new Union monster, meaning you can special summon the monster you equip using their Union effects. So he basically acts as a bridge to your ABC pieces, allowing you to special summon them when they're equipped and allowing you to continue to combo off. So he is pretty important. I wouldn't play him at anything more than 1. I think 1 is fine. Very rarely would you need a second, and he is a bit of a brick, so you don't want to be seeing him in your hand. Then we've got Therion King Regulus, the big man himself, bringing the deck back from the brink of irrelevance. Regulus here will basically target a monster in your graveyard, a machine monster I should say. He will special summon himself out to the field and then will equip that monster onto himself. Now that has play in virtually every machine based strategy, however it has even more play in this particular strategy because you're going to be equipping on monsters like your A, your B or your C, which not only could give Regulus protection from any form of card effect of your choice, but it also means that once they're equipped onto Regulus, you can just special summon them. He basically says, like in this deck, he essentially summons himself and revives another machine from your graveyard for free. Absolutely nuts. Regulus, honestly, I would be super tempted to bump this up to 3. Super tempted. You don't understand how tempted I am to craft a third. But no, Regulus I think is amazing. If you have 3 and you fancy it, run it at 3. He is honestly phenomenal. So yeah, no, Regulus is amazing, and plus not only does that, where he's basically a 2-card special summon, he special summons 2 cards, you also get the ability to, whenever your opponent activates a card, you can ditch a Therion monster from your field or your hand, including himself, to negate that card, which is amazing. It's basically an omni-negate, and he can send himself from field to graveyard, which is what you'll do most of the time, but if you happen to have another Therion in hand, well, you can discard that instead, which gives him effectively 2 negates, which is great. So Regulus is busted, really brings a lot of life back to this deck, so it does, and that's why people are so having so much fun playing it. The casual ladder is filled with it, and the ranked ladder is sort of seeing it here and there. I haven't seen it as commonly on the ranked ladder. Of course, all of these games were ranked, but in the casual ladder where I've been testing out some other decks, like a deck here, spoilers, right? But the other decks that I've been testing in casual, I've been seeing a lot of ABC in the casual ladder. But yeah, that's fine. Reasoning here, getting into your next thing before I can just ramble about this card for days. Reasoning here is a very interesting combo piece. I don't think a lot of people are playing this card, at least not in the versions that I've seen, but to be honest, whenever I'm playing the deck, I just want to go. I want to go, which is why I'm playing this card. I think this is great for that type of strategy, that type of gameplay. You basically just have your opponent declare a level from 1 to 12, you send cards from the top of your deck to the graveyard until you hit a monster that can be summoned. If their guess does not match the monster that you hit, you get to special summon that monster. And the thing is, that means you can summon a Regulus from your deck. That means you can summon your Buster pieces from deck. It means you can hit a Galaxy Soldier from deck. It means you can hit a Gadget from deck. All of these cards would be so valuable. The only real downside to Reasoning is that on occasion you're going to hit a monster that you don't really want to see. You might hit your Orbital, you might hit a hand trap, but even then most of your hand traps can still be used as material to go into things like Masquerena. So it's oftentimes not even the worst. It's basically just telling you, unless your opponent guesses right, you get to special summon a monster from your deck. What monster? Who knows, but doesn't matter, you're getting advantage out of it either way. The only question is how much advantage are you getting? And if that's your only question in life, well then you're not doing that bad, are you? So no, I'm a huge fan of Reasoning in this deck. It just really does help to have that additional gas to make the deck go. That initially was what it was lacking in my opinion, and I just couldn't figure it out. I think Reasoning does patch that hole pretty well. So yeah, I absolutely love this card in this deck. Then you've got the Terraforming. Terraforming is key in this deck. You have to play it because you're playing 2 busted ass field spells. So Terraforming basically acts as a 4th copy of each of these, and the flexibility it offers you is nuts. So Terraforming definitely mandatory. Pot of Prosperity, really good card. I mean, it just does Pot of Prosperity things, so if you want to be using that, go for it. Then our field spells, we're going to talk about these. Union Hanger is definitely much more stacked. Union Hanger is stacked. On activation, you get to grab any of your light machine union monsters from your deck to your hand. So you're going to grab an ABC piece, right? Usually the Buster Drake. And then whenever a light machine union monster is normal or special summoned to your field, you get to equip onto it another machine light union monster directly from your deck. So if you summon that Buster Drake, you get to summon out, equip to it. If you don't have any other extenders, you will equip a Union Driver, which will then grab you an A or a C, which you'll be able to special summon, and there's your 2 monsters for your link plays. If you do have extenders, you might skip over that step and just go straight into A or C, so that whenever you link summon and send the Buster Drake to the graveyard, you'll also be activating the effects of A or C. So really, it is a touch situational, but think about it like this: if you only have Buster Drake to summon, you equip Union Driver. If you have the ability to summon another monster to the field, like a gadget for example, then you just grab another ABC piece. It's as simple as that. Don't overthink it. Again, once you pick it up and practice with it, you'll see what I mean. It's not that hard to figure out, but it is definitely really, really busted. Then Therion Coliseum, which basically just searches your deck for Regulus. Like that's pretty much that's 90% of its usage is just searching for Regulus. It does have a couple of other effects. The only one you'll ever actually use is this last one, where if a monster is destroyed by battle, it's into the graveyard, you can grab a Therion monster from your graveyard and add it to your hand. So it does help recycle your Regulus a little bit, which is fine. Very rarely will that come up, because most of the time you've either already won or they've scooped. So it doesn't come up all the time, but it is something to bear in mind. It can recycle your Regulus a little bit from the grave, so that is worth noting, but it's basically just searching your deck for Regulus. And finally, we have Unauthorized Reactivation, which is pretty much just another extender, because you'll equip a machine monster with an appropriate machine union monster straight from your deck, but that union monster can't be special summoned. So basically, you're going to use this to equip on Union Driver, and then Union Driver banishes itself to grab a Buster piece, and then you've just got a Buster piece which you can summon. So this basically just, if you translate the text to usable English, it basically just says special summon a Buster piece from your deck, which is pretty good. You know what I mean? It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. You can't really complain about that. So yeah, no, this card's really good. It can also, in a pinch, act as protection for some of your light machines. So for example, if your ABC Dragon Buster or your Saber Dragon Infinity is being targeted by a card effect or under threat of being destroyed, you can actually use Unauthorized Reactivation to equip onto it a Buster piece from the deck that will provide you a level of protection that is useful in the situation. So if your opponent activates Lightning Storm and your monster's in attack position, well, just equip the Buster Drake onto it from deck. Suddenly your monster's unaffected by spells. Your opponent targets it with a destruction effect like a monster, Brawn the Fleur, will equip on an Assault Core. Now it's immune to monster effects. You're playing against a trap-based strategy, Labyrinth, you're playing against Salamangreats, equip on a Sea Crush Wyvern. Now their traps don't do anything. So that's the thing, it does offer a little bit of protection as well if you are so inclined to use it that way. Although again, 80% of the time you're just using it to combo off. So it's up to you, it's up for what the situation calls for. I just love cards that have that amount of versatility, where you can either use it to combo or you can use it defensively. Like, versatility is very, very important when it comes to this game. You need to be able to react to everything your opponent is doing. So yeah, definitely a really cool card. Getting into the extra deck here, I appreciate I'm rambling an awful lot. So this guy is the big key of the deck. The ABC Dragon Buster himself is the end-all and be-all of the deck, of course. He has 2 main effects. The first one, you discard a card to banish a card on the field. Quick play during either player's turn. That is pretty nuts, being able to banish a card on demand. He can also tribute himself to summon back 3 banished Light Machine Union monsters, which usually means your A, your B, and your C. You summon them back to the field during your opponent's turn, and that effect is limited to your opponent's turn, which is really, really good, because that works very strongly alongside Masquerena and things like that. It helps you generate a bunch of advantage as well, because when these cards are sent back to the graveyard, you will then be searching your deck for cards, adding cards from grave to hand. So you're going to be going nuts here with card advantage. So the ABC Dragon Buster, absolutely not. So glad this card is a 3. You don't have to play 3 if you don't want to. You can get away with playing 2 of it, but in longer games you're going to miss the third copy, so I would play 3. Plus, I mean, just look at it. Oh my god. It's like Chaz's deck, but on steroids. Amazing. Getting into the Exceed monsters, we're playing number 41 Baguska purely because on occasion you're going to get hit with Max C, and you have the ability normally to put out 2 level 4 monsters pretty consistently, so having the Floodgate option of Baguska in a situation where you're getting Max Seed is very powerful. He's basically here as a fallback plan just in case things don't go very well for you, and it works, trust me. Like, I use Baguska in a lot of decks like this that really don't like Max C. If they can put out level 4s, I'm putting in Baguska because it's just an excellent way to buy yourself time to get something out of the turn instead of just passing on a level 4. It just gets you something with really sort of high impact and that will work against a lot of combo based strategies out onto the field. Is it foolproof? No, it's not foolproof. Is it going to work every time? No, it's not going to work every time, but it is a very powerful option. Then you've got your Cyber Dragon package. You summon out Nova using your Galaxy Soldiers and rank it up into Infinity. Infinity has an Omni Negate once per turn to attach a material to negate. It also has the ability to, during your turn, suck up one of your opponent's attack position monsters and equip it onto himself as Exceed material. This card is nuts. You can summon this card easier in this deck than you can any other deck I've ever played. So yes, absolutely, you will abuse Infinity. It is amazing. Then we have a whole bunch of generic links. I'm going to cover off the core ones. The first being Platinum Gadget. This guy really helps with your link climbs and making sure all of your ABC pieces are in the graveyard. On occasion, you're going to be stuck with one in your hand, perhaps. And Gadget basically fixes that problem by special summoning a machine monster out to a zone it points to. So this guy is pretty important at unbricking certain hands. Then you've got Masquerena, which you need to have in this deck. It is so busted in this deck. It basically allows you to link summon during your opponent's turn. Considering the amount of monsters you're going to be having on the board thanks to this guy's second effect, you can go into things like a 4 material Apollosa. You can go into the Underworld Chaos Goddess Lady. The amount of options you have for summoning on your opponent's turn is actually criminal, and you still have the classics like the Nightmare Unicorn. So Masquerena is absolutely mandatory in this deck. I would say you're missing out on a lot of power if you're not playing Masquerena. Then we've got Union Carrier, which is probably the most important link monster in the deck. Basically, you can target a monster on your field and equip onto it a monster from your deck with these same type or attributes. So this guy can actually equip on your Union monsters from your deck regardless of their restrictions, meaning you can technically give something like Regulus additional protection. What you will normally use it for is one of 2 things. The majority of the time you'll be using it for Photon Orbital. So Photon Orbital can, while it's equipped onto a monster, can send itself to the graveyard and it will search your deck for a Galaxy monster, so it's going to grab your Galaxy Soldier. That Union Carrier is going to be equipping it onto itself to activate that effect. Other than that, you might use it for Union Driver for the reasons we've already talked about, but Union Carrier, definitely the most important link monster in the deck. I don't think it's even disputable. Definitely the best engine piece in the extra deck. Then we've got Nightmare Unicorn, just to spin cards back to deck, pretty self-explanatory. Apollosa, again, I keep referring to this card, being able to summon this card out with 4 materials. For anyone who doesn't know how Apollosa works, basically, it's a link 4. It gains 800 attack per material you use for its summon, which means if you use 4 materials, you have 3200 attack points. And why is that significant? Well, it's not just a beater. What you can do is you can sacrifice 800 of its attack points once per chain, not once per turn, once per chain. Sacrifice 800 of its attack points to negate the effect of a monster, negate the activation of a monster effect. So that's pretty good. Having 4 materials used for it means you have 4 monster negates built into this card, and considering you can summon it during your opponent's turn after you've already interrupted their plays with ABC and whatever else you've had on the field, this becomes really nuts. This just mops up their follow-up like it's nobody's business. So Apollosa is absolutely key in this deck. I would say Apollosa is mandatory, absolutely. It's definitely the best link 4. You have Access Code Talker. For Access Code Talker things, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. Banish a bunch of cards, boost your attack up to 5300, and just beat their ass. If anyone doesn't know how Access Code Talker works at this point, I'm not sure. But yeah, you basically just link summon this card out to beat their ass. This one isn't mandatory. You don't need to play Access Code Talker, but I mean, come on. It's so good. Why wouldn't you? And lastly, this card is like, I want to call this card core, with how busted it is. I want to tell you that this card is mandatory with how absolutely disgusting it is. It isn't mandatory, of course. You can play the deck without it, but oh my god, will you be missing out. This card is nuts, where basically it just acts as a sort of extra deck kaiju. You can link summon it using one monster your opponent controls as material. Now, there needs to be at least 4 monsters used for the summon, but your deck doesn't mind that. Again, even just on your opponent's turn, you're going to have 4 monsters from just Masquerena ABC. Which means that if they summon even 1 monster, you can go into the Goddess of the Closed World. So basically you just kaiju one of their cards to summon this one out to yours. It has, on summon, it will negate the effects of all face-up monsters your opponent currently controls. So if they're in the middle of a combo, or if they're even towards the end of a combo, and you suddenly negate their entire board, that's going to be a big deal. It's basically a Dark Ruler no more on your opponent's turn. And secondly then, it also has an effect where if your opponent tries to special summon something from the graveyard, you can negate the activation of the card that would special summon, which is pretty nuts. Honestly, Underworld Goddess, this is as close to core as you can possibly get without actually being core. That's it, that's what I mean. It's so close to being core. It's that strong. But yeah, I mean, that's the whole deck. I'll bring the hand traps back up so we can get a look at it. But this is the deck. I've been having a ton of fun with this. Is it the best way of playing ABC? I don't know. I don't know if it's the best way. I just think it's the most fun way, and it has been putting up some crazy boards. So it might be the best, who knows? But anyway, I'm going to be testing out more variants of it. I'm going to be putting up more videos on it, especially around the adventure version of the deck. We are going to be playing the adventure engine at least once in it, so if you want to catch that video or any other video where we're going to be testing out some fun and goofy decks, we've got a video coming out soon. If you've watched this far, you deserve to know. On Therion Cyberdarks, things like that. We're going to be messing around with a lot of really cool ideas, a lot of really fun gimmicks, just to see exactly what we can get out of this monster to get the absolute most out of it. But yes, if you want to catch any videos like that and you're not already subscribed, why not just subscribe, you know? It doesn't cost you anything, you're not missing out. It helps me out, helps me get to my target of 1,000 here for the end of January, and you get to see cool content. Everybody wins. So with that, I've got nothing else really to say on the deck, so I'll catch you on the next one. Bye bye!